All right, everybody, listen, I think it is in the air. What do we do about employees versus AI? Is AI coming for your job? And as a leader of small or mid-sized companies, your board or your leadership is looking around and going, well, everybody else is laying off people. What do I do? And my guest today, Anthony Rose, who's founder and CEO of Seed Legals, a legal tech platform powering US and UK startups, has about 150 people and has some thoughts, let's just say. So Anthony, thanks for coming on Great Mondays Radio. Really appreciate you being here. You are a serial entrepreneur. You believe deeply in culture, which is how we got connected. And you were just saying, uh, it used to be, time was that the badge of honor for a founder was to have has lots of people. Look, it's proof that I'm winning. That's what it was, but it's not anymore. Talk to me about your experience in that. Like, what's the story here?
Yeah, so firstly, hello, I'm Anthony, founder at Seed Legals. We're a 150 person startup, and that's usually what I would do at a startup event. And the other person would go, "Oh, I'm at a 200 person startup." You go, "Bastard, they're bigger," or I'm a 70. Like, great, we're ahead. But
Yeah.
and we're busy hiring, and soon we'll be 200. But actually, that formula is changed because more is often a failure, I think, now to be less. And so here's the challenge, which I'm sure every, mid to late stage startup founder is thinking about, is should you be hiring aggressively? Should you look to stay where you are so nobody gets fired? Or should you be looking to actually downsize and replace team with, AI? If you see that your dev team is using Claude Code, I hope they're not listening. If they're using Claude Code and they tell you that we are 70% more efficient, does that mean awesome, I can do with fewer developers, or I should ship 70% more products and stay with the same team, or maybe I need to radically redo the composition of the dev team. So these type of developers I don't need anymore, but these type I need. So, and then you get to your customer support team. So at Seed Legals, we're a platform and a team, and our customers love our team and our customer support. We see on the NPS scores, love so and so is immensely helpful, hearts and so on. And if I were to tell our customers we're replacing our law grad customer support team with I don't think they'll see it as a positive. They'll go, "We would like Claire back again, please." So, on the flip side, you have pressure from your, VC fund investors and so on to take advantage of AI, and you think it's remiss of you that you're not doing it. So this is a space that we all navigate in, and I think for most founders, would like of course, and feel you have to embrace the future with AI, but how can you do it in a way that you aren't needing to terminate wonderful members of your team, particularly when, if the rest of the world is doing this as well, you're creating a kind of dysfunctional society where some of, talented people are now out of a job. And if every company is thinking, I'm going to reduce my workforce by 20%, then that's 20% of an entire generation of workforce out of a job.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Well, of course, one answer is they start a company themselves and become founders and embrace AI. Maybe
Hmm.
that is the change that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go back to my customers would prefer to have Claire over AI. And it made me think of, I'll push back. I mean, I obviously, as a human, appreciate that. And obviously, inherently take that side. I think there's a lot to humans. But I think about in the 2000s, there was the store, like there was a number of books about, I don't know, these kind of upstart organizations, and how Southwest Airlines here in the United States is like they were the first to kind of budget carrier to cut everything. And the point in the book was like, well, if you asked everybody if they would like a light salad snack, they would say, of course I would like salad, but we're not going to choose to do that because we're focused on the budget. And I almost feel like um there's this attitude, almost an extreme version of that now, where it's you know, and we saw it start with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, where it's like it's not going to be as good, but we're going to cut a crap load of employees. And so now the kind of the mentality I feel, or I have observed, it seems like, fuck it all. We're going to cut as many people as we can. And even if service drops, what choice do other people have? You know what I mean? Like, even if it's like, we're going to be twice as profitable.
I hear you. I look at it a little differently, which is, firstly, AI in a sense is just the latest tech change for, centuries. And once upon a time, people you were knitting, and then machines came along. And my take is the smartest knitters became designers of the jacquard cards, used for the machines and so on. So if you can train your team to use AI, and you can do
Yep.
more as a company with no one being out of business. The second thing is, AI lets you do things that simply weren't possible before. So if you can get a response from AI in 1 second rather than waiting 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, that's an advantage. The other thing is, AI can provide all sorts of different user experiences. So, in fact, my starting point is not about reducing team or reducing the service. It was, when I said our customers not beating their way to the door for that, you have to think what's the next generation. So, a great example is in the UK, you can apply to the government for something, these tax incentives for investors. You don't have to, but it's a pattern that you get what's called advance assurance. And about 60% of all of them in the UK get done through Seed Legals. So we write to the government on your behalf and submit a well-prepared application that's going to have a 99% chance of success in a much shorter amount of time. So our team created this like 48 point checklist over the years based on tens of thousands of these applications. We're world authorities on this. And so they've got this playbook of things to do. But of course, why does a human need to do this? AI can do it. And so we then implemented using our unique knowledge and data, an AI system that now interactively gives you feedback. So instead of needing to upload your pitch deck and do everything and then waiting a day or two to get feedback, as you're doing it, you're getting these real-time responses. And for my team, it saves them a huge amount of time. For the customer, it's a better experience, but we also have a human in the loop. So before we send it to the government, a human checks it. But instead of the human going, I found 12 errors, please fix it, it's like, okay, great, you're down to 0 errors or, one bit of advice. And so it's a win-win. And I like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, where do the question that you are going through, or what I hear you kind of the question under the statement is, where are humans most valuable and where are they least valuable? Let's put it that way. Is that a fair way to capture it?
Yes, I think so. And one of the interesting things is it may not be in the places that you expect. So our starting point was it's often sort of the poorer paid jobs or whatever it is. But actually, for example, designers, there's a thing called Alloy.app. So you can install the plugin, go to your website and say, make a better version of this web page. And in like 60 seconds, it's going to make something that, designers would have come back a week later. It's awesome. And then there are things like Lovable and so on. And so it may be possible that there are many higher paid jobs where actually, AI provides a result really quickly. So do those team members now use AI, or, does the CEO start using these tools themselves to bypass the team, or nudge you 90% there and then
Yeah.
the team take over? I don't profess to know the answer, but I do look to have everyone in our team, take advantage of it. And it's moved, I have to say, in our company from, I don't know, some year ago, you had kind of had to ask for permission to use Claude or Claude Code. And there's sort of slight frowns on should a dev team be using Claude Code? And now I've made it clear, if you're not using Claude Code, we
Yeah.
need to have a serious discussion. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I was just speaking to a colleague of mine. He has been a UX designer for 2 decades, lots of experience. And he is he had a contract job, and his product manager and he weren't getting along, but whatever, that always happens. And then she just went in to Figma, and there's an AI thing, and she was like, "Here, this is what I'm thinking. This is what it is." And he, it to me, it's like it's what he said was it wasn't any good, but to her, it looked like what she wanted. She didn't really have the expertise. And I wonder, so my question is really about um, is it possible, or how long until these, whatever the app is, Alloy or Lovable, has the expertise built in where the product manager who does not know about the UX or the UI can tap it in, and basically come up with something actually really good.
well, there's another step further, which is the product manager may or may not be needed at all. So there's talk about the new role of an engineer called a product engineer. So once upon a time, there were multiple roles. There was a product manager
Hmm.
who knew about customers and could work, with designers to create designs. And then there was an engineer who typically did not want to talk to another human and would code. But what's now happening is the engineer doesn't need to code as much because Claude Code will help on that.
Yep.
And the product, well, they can also start using tools to do design, as can the marketing team. So you may see the rise of what's now called a product engineer, which is also forward deployed engineer. So somebody interacting with customers themselves, maybe more of a product person slash customer facing person, but now able to build things themselves. And you may have some smaller group of super geeky engineers to make sure the security stuff's working and it's scalable and
Hmm.
so on. And I love how tech is mixing things up. And I love
Mm.
that people who are not developers in our team can go off and create things. And I really push the team to do that and in a sense incentivize them. So everyone in our company, I like to think, is an entrepreneur themselves
That's right.
and a product person themselves. So instead of you talking to a customer, having an idea and then having to write up a ticket for somebody to build it, if you can action that yourself with some checks and balances, ideally, so you don't bring the house down. I think that's a terrific thing to do.
Okay, so what this makes me think of is, and what you've already called out, maybe I'm feeling optimistic right now, but I love this idea of, and I've talked about it before in a few episodes of like every employee is an entrepreneur. The shift that when you said that happened in my brain was from asking for permission to given autonomy or authority to actually go do it. So, is your vision for this, or is your thought that we're going to be able to, well, I guess for me, it's like remove the overhead of um, the kind of, hey, is this the way? And we need to do it. Now these tools are giving us all this opportunity to actually solve the problem because as an individual, I can do more. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. So, firstly, I'm a tech, optimist. So everything is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So there are no bad things. There are only opportunities.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is as like this. In a company, there are many people who have ideas. Some of them are people that talk to your customers, your sales team and your support team, and customers give them thoughts and ideas and feedback, and so they've got ideas. Some of them are, the senior team who've got strategic, long-term things. Some of them are the developers themselves and others in the team. So everyone's got ideas. And the problem is stuff has to be done to turn these ideas into reality. But if you can give people the power to do this themselves, then that makes everyone's life happier, more productive, and the company gets more done. So, a good example, most times I see companies, their public website is a WordPress site or a Squarespace or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes they've made a huge tactical error and they've like built it, they've coded their public website. Now, if you're using WordPress, if one of my content team have an idea, or I've got an idea and want to write an article, you just log in and minutes later you've got a new web page. But if you've had your dev team code it, you're screwed. It's sitting then on a GitHub backlog somewhere for a month's time to compete. So if you take out the friction of somebody needing to be in the gap between I have an idea and this is the execution,
Yeah.
that's a win. And this is where AI tools make all the difference. So if I want a web page, I can go to Lovable and vibe code the web
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
if I want a new product feature. So here's an example which I love, which is I was analyzing one of our legal docs on the platform, and I found an edge case that I wasn't happy with the way the platform was rendering it. And so sometimes I would code the change myself, but I just didn't have time. As a CEO, I still like to keep my hand in, but I didn't have time. So I made a Loom video for my team saying, hey, on this document, this isn't quite right. And with these inputs, I think it should say this instead. So, and I posted that, in GitHub for the team to look at. And actually, what they did, I was blown away. Is instead of saying, thanks, Anthony, for the video, I've coded it, they took the video, put it into Claude Code, and said, take the video and code the change from the video. It's like, holy moly, did I just no longer need a tech team at all?
Yeah.
I did not see that coming. Anyway, Claude Code didn't quite get it right, so the tech team still
It
have
still has a job.
still have a job. But I was blown away that they even thought of doing that, and it got it sort of 90% right. But I had made the video for them. Had I known that they're going to pass it to Claude Code, I'd have said, Claude Code, do these things rather than, hey, this doesn't feel quite right. And so, there was the sudden view of the future. So
Mm.
if that meant I could do this change myself in a tenth the time, then a lot changes. And my co-founder is busy actually building new product features using Claude Code, which we would never have been able to do because the gap between his strategic vision on something he's been thinking about for years and then looping in all the downstream folks to make it happen, whereas he can now build it himself, not necessarily to get it to production, but enough to visualize it and maybe with a bit of help turn it into production.
All right, I want to run something by you. Is sort of how it's a point of view on kind of the evolution of how teams are using AI. So you're talking about it's three levels or three stages. So level one is where most people are, which is doing the same thing faster, right? So I can create reports, I can do whatever it is, the same thing I used to do, but now I can do it faster. Great, fine. What we've been talking about is kind of stage two, which is I now can do what other people used to do myself, right? Kind of, I imagine it as like one of those mechs from the sci-fi movies, right? Where it's like I'm now stronger and I can code, right? I did this last week. I'm a designer. I usually just design a slide for a presentation, but I had Claude create this little like interactive one pager. And I was like, that's amazing, right? So but those are still things that used to happen. Now I can do it. And we've now, I think, revealed kind of, okay, we're reducing overhead and friction and all of that stuff that used to be take so much time and energy. Wonderful. My the third stage, the place that I think businesses need to get to and are going to have a very hard to get it, time achieving is using AI to work in entirely new ways. The first two stages are working in old way, the same thing, just better or more or whatever. But only, and like your point about when the mechanical looms came along or when electricity came along, right? It was 20 or 30 years before we actually figured out how to use it. So my question is, do you agree with the premise of those kind of like that's the evolution of the stage? And if so, how do we help teams learn to use AI in new ways?
So I love your proposition, and I think it's the key concern as a CEO of a decent size and growing startup, which is you might be looking over here, polishing. We can get some optimizations, and you're
Polishing.
missing the tsunami over there. And so, of course, I like to think across our business, we're doing a use of AI for some things which are team efficiency gains. Then we're doing things for new workflows that just weren't possible before. And then how do we make sure we're doing completely new things? So, for example, we're building the Seed Legals Copilot. So this is the agentic workflow, which is the next thing. So you upload your pitch deck and these agents spring to work doing stuff for you. And so maybe people actually perceive in, 6 months' time or longer, our company in a completely new way. All the things we've built over the last 10 years are still there, but are kind of buried by this new layer,
Hmm.
which is a voice prompted interface. And so, what I'd like is instead of going to the platform and saying, going in the interface in the left nav and creating a safe and then sending it, you just say, upload your pitch deck, and the agents spring to life and it says, I found 3 investors potentially for you. Would you like to send safes to them? And you go, yes, send one to Alice and tell me when she signed. So how you can reinterpret what people want to do. But is even that going far enough? So I don't know the answer, but it's a fun intellectual space to play in. And then the
Yeah.
question is how game you are to push the boundaries. And I think there's one other thing which is really important, which is are you too old to be a player in this new game? And so I think when, Bitcoin and so on came along, there were sort of blockchain natives, and others looked at it and went, I don't really understand it. And now you see younger team members just embracing AI, and others are not so sure. Do
Hmm.
you need to have a next generation younger team and or company culture as a whole to truly get the next step? Or are you able to fit it on your company? And obviously, I've been around for a while, but I'd like to make sure that I can also reinvent myself and our company so that we can, be ahead on the next step.
What do you think? Okay. Uh, Old dog, new tricks, right? The trope. Um, so what do you think is preventing old dogs from learning new tricks?
I think they don't know of the existence of the new trick space, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
okay,
if
okay.
if if you knew there was a new trick, you could figure out because if you've been around for a while, you're good at solving problems, you understand risk reward, you take risks and so on. You've been there. The question is when there was something new you just didn't think that people wanted. So, a good thing would be Airbnb. Were you to ask me, do you want to rent out your home to strangers? I go,
Like,
dude,
hell no. Are you
are you
fucking crazy?
mental? There's absolutely no one's going to do it. It's a stupid idea. And then suddenly lots of people are doing it. And you go, how did I ever think that it wasn't a good idea? So how do you get past that? And so my favorite example of this is a company called Pulsea, who are pretty unknown and now on the news. They just raised $30 million at a 250 million valuation, and it's a one-person company. So I discovered Pulsea, I don't know, 4 months ago or so. And it's basically a one person or an AI company builder. So you go to Pulsea and you enter your website URL, and it basically builds an entire marketing team of AI agents for you. So I just put in seedlegals.com, and then it worked out who I was on LinkedIn. And then it's decided actually one of the first things we need to do is a competitor analysis. So it was talking to me as if it was my, head of commercial or something, or head of marketing. We're going to do so then it did a competitor analysis and then said, based on this, I think you need to have some more products and you need to have some articles for SEO. So it then proceeded to write these articles. And then it started giving me, it gives me daily updates telling me the article yesterday wasn't very good. I'm doing a new one tomorrow. Then it decided to do outbound. It said I needed to do more outbound. So it identified prospects and it wrote the outbound messaging and started sending it to them. Then it started telling me no one's replying yet, but that's okay. It takes a while to get replies. So it was
It's
like this.
self-soothing.
Yeah, it was exactly. It was like this hyperactive new intern that is just building like an entire marketing department. But it was unbelievable. I mean, it hasn't right now given me real value, but I think that's probably more me than it because I just look at the emails it sends every day and go, I've got this crazy intern that I'm paying $49 a month to, and it's going nuts. But it's really impressive. I think it wrote some better articles, on its own than my team has written.
Yeah.
So I think that's the blind spot that you just didn't see. So if I was a startup founder doing a new company, I might say, let me just try this and skip hiring anybody and get it to build stuff for me.
Okay. Do you have a marketing team?
Of course, yes.
And is it doing something other than what your marketing team is do? Like, how long until Pulsier replaces your marketing team, if ever?
Well, so far it's telling me it's had no incomings from its outbound messaging. So
So
my,
no.
my but I think it's going. It should. I mean, well, the question. I don't think I'm about to replace the market. I'm not about to because they do really good things, and we've got good pipeline and so on. But could it augment it? And I've been telling the marketing team, guys, you've got to go off and check out Pulsier to see next time you want an article written, don't go write, just tell it to write an article, or go tell it to do the
Yeah.
competitor analysis, or
Yeah.
tell it to
Yeah.
suggest
Yeah.
new products we should have.
Yeah, this is I mean, so I mentioned that, that little interactive, single page that I created for a presentation that I was doing, or a talk I was doing. It wasn't like Claude allowed me to replace a developer that I had, right? Like I wasn't going to go and get a developer to do this. It's an entirely new way of working that allowed me to do more, which is, I think, where we started this conversation, which is allowing people to do more work. And it to me leads me right back to kind of the beginning of our conversation as we wrap up is we're in what economists are calling low hire, low fire environments. And I'm assuming, so best case scenario, right? You're not about to do, I don't know, whatever founder is not about to do 20% layoffs like everybody else, right? We can see through it. But we're also not about to expand our marketing team. We're not about to hire other folks. Have I got that right? Do you
I,
think that
I, I
logic
think
is
I think
good?
that's a reasonable summary. You have worked with people. Of course, you want to be nice to people. The people are great and to be with and performing. On the flip side, you think that it is remiss of you to start adding headcount when you know that tech change is going to be coming.
Yeah. So let's circle back to Claire and your team. What is it that is valuable about do you believe to your customers about Claire at all? Like, why
Well,
is that the place that humans still exist?
it's a good point. I think humans exist because they can take the initiative to use machines to do more than the machines could do on their own until the machines can take the initiative to use the machines. And I think that's where I found Pulsio quite interesting because it was the machine taking the initiative and doing things which you wouldn't have thought to do. It set itself tasks and it came up with the tasks.
Yeah.
So plus the AI makes mistakes. Sometimes in the legal world, it makes egregious mistakes, and we're a legal tech platform. I'm also not quite ready to have it tell you things to do because I've just seen too many times it comes up with ideas like nice idea, but no cigar. It's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
So
I see where you
it's
came from. No.
it's wrong. I mean, sometimes you ask Grok something and then it gets it wrong and you tell it it's wrong and then it comes up with another answer. You go, well, that isn't inspiring me with confidence. So, but you can obviously start using AI for soft things. Make me a picture of a rabbit, with a red hat or something. And, if it gets a green hat, nobody cares. You'll tell it make a red hat. But there are other things which are more important. But maybe an example is we have a new product coming out called a Safer. So for those familiar with fundraising in the US, it goes like this, which is once upon a time, people spent 50 or $100,000 with lawyers on funding rounds. And then Y Combinator came along and went, that's crazy. We want to give people some money. We don't want to take this much time or this much cost. So we're going to give you a safe, which is a simple agreement for future equity. It's like an IOU. I'm going to give you some money now. You're going to give me stock one day in the future. And for 10 years, they've been really popular. But safes, in my view, as the Brit now expanding to the US and having an outside view of the market, safes are not safe. Investors are missing out on tax breaks, and founders get dilution stacking up against them. So I've said, wait, there's a new concept that I'd like to launch in the US market that solves this problem with technology to give investors stock, because I can productize that, and I'm going to call it a safer. So if I get it right, it's going to change US fundraising. I like to think only a human would have come up with this idea, because as a human going, every problem is an opportunity. I'm seeing a new market, I'm seeing a slightly dysfunctional behavior. I can come up with something new, and there's no precedent that the AI would have used, I think, to come up with that. So, to the extent that humans can think on new things and the machine doesn't, that is good. Now, it's quite possible that, were I to ask ChatGPT to come up with a new instrument, it would come up with something like that. I haven't seen it do that, but I like to think that that is a human advantage still.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I do, and my what I would add about the kind of where humans still play a role is that humans want to talk to humans, because it's not just, I don't want just the task to be done. I want to be seen and heard.
So this is really interesting. So, one of my scaling, methodologies is the third time somebody asks me or us a problem, we'll write an article or do a video. So customers will ask us how to do X or Y. Okay, great, we've got a video on that. But then they'll still ask because they want to ask and talk to a human. They don't want to be told to create a video. So it may be the case that no amount of AI will help because you just want to talk to a human. Or maybe you can socially engineer things to go, I can get you an answer in the next half a second with AI, or you can get a person to talk to you in 10 minutes. Which do you want? Or I'm calling the person, but in the meantime, here's an answer. And if it helps you, so I mean, obviously, as the AI gets better, it's going to solve more things, and people will switch to that one, I think. But none of us really know the answer. And you see companies, mentioning they're aggressively terminating their support team, and then later on going, "Well, we acted too fast. We're getting them back again."
That's right,
But
exactly.
but
Yeah.
just as soon as they've gotten them back again, AI's improved, and maybe they're not needed, or maybe they settle at a new equilibrium.
I think that little example is a really compelling micro case of what we've misunderstood about what AI is and isn't for. So the assumption was these are the lowest paid workers, and it's the questions are always the same. Obviously, AI can replace that, but it can't because it's doing the wrong thing. And I think that is maybe the next unlock for, and I think tech leaders aren't notoriously awesome human understanders. Like that's, like you said, the product manager's job. um but maybe that's part of what we need to be pushing out on, to understand where AI is and isn't going to be effective in the future.
Yes, I think one other thing, which is, AI for the most part is a chat interface today. And of course, AI can do everything from self-driving cars, but for most people, the experience is ChatGPT or similar with the chat
Yeah.
interface.
Yeah.
But chat interfaces are very limited interface, and some things are good for chat interface, and some things it's just wrong. So it will be fantastic to see the next evolution of interfaces, or at least workflows. So, for example, you know, uh, for someone who's been around for a while, nothing is new, everything's a repeat. So you talk about, AI chatbot for booking flights. But, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, there was a rise of these chatbots, and then you would book flights, with the chatbot. But it was terrible experience. The chatbot, you go, where would you like to go? Oh, great, I'd like to go to Paris. Excellent. I've got 4 flights to Paris. What time do you want to go? All right. Now I've got this flight. It's like, for fuck's sake, just show me a list of the flights you've got to Paris with a checkbox to click on the one rather than my asking backwards and forwards.
I could do a
So
couple things at once here.
exactly, I can see a screen of 27 different flights and with a few filter buttons and order them, and I can see what works as opposed to going backwards and forwards. So so
That's so good. Yes.
I'm really intrigued about how different workflows. So, for example, on Seed Legals, there's a cap table. You don't query a cap table with text prompts. Give Alice 27 more shares and common stock, and then John gets no. Just show me a cap table and add things in a different way, and show me a
Hmm.
graph.
Hmm.
So, different problems have got different interfaces, and I think we've only at the tip of exploring those.
Yeah. Final piece of advice for someone in your position, organization, kind of still startup, 100-ish folks, when it comes to how to, grow the team and thinking about AI, what would be the like sort of one thing, one or two things that you would
Well,
point
can
people
I answer a
towards?
slightly different question, which
Of
is
course.
advice for earlier stage founders? So, one of the key things that I've seen a change fundamentally is previously you used to raise funding to build your product. But as the cost of building has decreased, Vibe Code, Claude Code, and so on, investors are expecting you to have funded the product yourself. So if you now go to investors to say, I'm raising 500K to build the product, they're going to say, dude, you need to have built that yourself. Call me when you've got traction. So you have to bootstrap more, and you now can bootstrap more so that when you go to investors, you're showing them, I've built it. People like, I mean, it's still a super early version, but here's some traction and I've validated it. And now I want money to scale, and scaling means customer acquisition and so on. So I think that is important. The other thing is, since AI has made it so much easier and more accessible for everybody to build stuff, that there's so much noise. So, Apple App Store submissions are up something like 40% in the
Yeah.
past 12 months, which means you're fighting so much noise. And you can now build a website in 10 minutes with Lovable, but the problem is those Lovable websites all look the same. So if you're an investor and you're looking, or a customer, and I'm looking at a website, I mean, I can tell instantly what it was built with, and how much time people put into it. But if you saw a website, previously you thought they'd put some effort and they have gotten to a certain point to get there. Now it could be they've spent 5 minutes, voice telling Lovable what to build, and they've got a good web, and there's actually nothing else to it. So the bar is so much higher to cut through the noise and show that you've actually got something unique, and maybe the only proof point that exists now is traction because everything else has evaporated.
Amazing. Yeah, that fits into a paradigm, how I'm thinking about it as well. And I was just speaking to someone who's writing a book, and it's like it's like bloop, bloop, write a book for me, right? And so it's like
Right.
now having a book doesn't mean crap. So, I feel like I could continue to have this conversation for an hour, but I need to be respectful of your time and my listeners' time. So why don't we wrap it there? I think so many good, amazing insights that I experienced through our conversation. Really appreciate your time and effort and sharing your experience with us. Anthony Rose, who is founder and CEO of Seed Legals. You can learn more about the legal tech platform powering US and UK startups at seedlegals.com. Hey, Anthony, thanks for coming on Great Mondays Radio. This was phenomenal.